welcome to another episode of Bro History. It is Henry Zamodi.
Henry Zamodi.
Man, I just mispronounced my own name. This is not a good start. It's Henry Zamota and Daniel Abdul-Jabbar. What's going on, man?
What's up? I prefer not to be named Daniel, though.
I called you Daniel?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
All good.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bro History. I hope you're all having a nice Monday. I believe that's when this episode is going to drop, depending on weather circumstances, obviously. But hope everyone's doing well. There's a couple of things in the news that we wanted to discuss that kind of go along with a lot of the other things that we've been talking about. First thing I want to talk about, though, is that I got a deep tissue massage yesterday, and it was by a man. First time.
Really?
So my girlfriend and I, we went and got a couples massage, which was very nice of her. It was her idea.
I love it.
It was
Groupon?
It was a surprise. I don't think it was a Groupon. No, it was one of those really sketchy Asian places that like you need to like knock in a certain code for them to let you in, and it may or may not be an opium den. So you get inside, and we had one, and I was expecting to have a woman do my massage. I've never had a male massage before in my entire life.
Never had a man touch you like that?
I mean, not that I would have a problem with it, but I was a little surprised when a man walked in. And I've always imagined if I was going to get massaged by a man, it would be like a big sumo wrestler. But it wasn't. It was kind of a skinny,
like a dainty guy.
Not really a dainty guy, but an average sized man. And he asked, he's like, "Do you want it hard?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? Like, if I'm going to have a man massage me, I might as well have it hard, right?" Yeah. This guy took his elbow and basically for an hour beat the shit out of me.
I love those massages.
Just beating the shit out of my back. He like beat up my butt. Like he started elbowing my ass.
He beat up your butt, really?
He started elbowing my ass for a good 15 minutes. And at that time, I started thinking, I'm like, well, this is the time to see if you could last in prison. Can you last in prison right now? I was thinking about that because it was just like a drill up my butt. It was quite the experience, but today, I feel like I actually just had like a crazy workout. Like, so he did something, but it was quite the experience. I recommend getting massaged by a man.
Yeah, I love it, actually. I prefer it. They're stronger, for sure. And they get out those knots, you know? If you want like some cute Swedish massage, then yeah, sure, whoever. But if you're looking for deep tissue stuff, like I need some mass behind the massages, you know? And typically speaking, not, there are some big women masseuses, but the guys can really get in there. So,
I want, if a woman's massaging me, I want Elga from Belarus, who has a unibrow.
I want Brienne of Tarth to massage me.
I want Brienne of Tarth. But this guy really did a number on me. So hopefully everyone can share the experience of getting massaged by a man.
How do you feel after it? Good?
I feel sore.
That's how you know it worked.
Yeah, that's how it was, like a foam roll, being foam rolled for an hour and a half.
That's awesome.
And it was cheap as fuck too. It was like $30, and I've had deep tissue massages before, and usually they're by women, and they did not even get like, this was the best one I've ever had in my entire life. That's
awesome. Did you leave him a good Yelp review?
Yes, I did.
That's awesome.
I gave him the happy ending. All right, so let's talk about today's topics. So a number of things that we wanted to speak about. I think the first thing on the list, something that we spoke about before, we had a whole episode on this, was the secret nuclear deal with the Trump transition team with Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. And basically, just to give you kind of a refresher, members of the Trump transition team, they tried to push a nuclear deal through with Saudi Arabia to start developing nuclear plants. However, the problem is that they didn't go through the process of having the Saudis sign a 1-2-3 agreement. And what a 1-2-3 agreement does, it prevents the proliferation and basically the enriching of uranium, so they could eventually use them as a bomb or a weapon of some sort.
Right.
So I believe it was a couple days ago, Rick Perry approved the U.S. to preliminary work on nuclear power ahead of any deal. But we're not going to be shipping equipment that would go into a plant yet.
I mean, that's got to go through Congress. And that's kind of the whole controversy that was, behind, our episode on that, was that you have to go through the proper channels to disseminate this very sensitive technology. The TLDR or TLDV, I guess, too long didn't watch, of that video that we did on it, was that, there's not a whole lot different behind the technology to enrich uranium for commercial purposes, for civilians, and for making weapons. You just kind of leave the material in there longer and enrich it to a higher grade in order to make bomb material. So, that's why when we set up nuclear facilities all around the world, it's got to be approved by Congress, understandably so, because if we give this technology to just anyone, they can themselves either use it for nefarious purposes, or that technology can be leaked to other nefarious countries or entities, states, things like that. So that's why it's really important. And I'm not surprised. Not at all surprised that this deal went through.
Well, the reason why is because there's competition between South Korea and Russia on the same deal with the Saudis. So the U.S. is trying to win that deal by preliminary doing work on it, so they can be like, well, we already started doing work on it. Like, you have to go through the deal, because there's going to be a lot of money involved. I believe there's the one company that is responsible for building all these nuclear plants is ICP3 International.
That's correct.
They're that company. It's all like former members of the State Department, and that's the one deal that they're working on.
It's the only thing they're working on. Right?
It's the only thing that they're working on, and then there's like a lot of generals, and I think Flynn is an advisor, or at least he was an advisor of the company. So it's one of those like kind of
Flynn's going to jail.
Get rich. Yeah, well, it's one of those ways that generals try to profit off certain deals. That's what it really is. At the end of the day, they're trying to push this through this deal. They're trying to push this deal through because everyone on this board is going to make a shitload of cash on it. We're talking about billions of dollars, man.
Billions with a B.
Billions with a B. So they're just trying to capitalize right now, and they're trying to push us through as fast as possible.
I don't know, man. I think we're not shy about our questioning of Saudi foreign policy, and to say that I'm concerned, it would be putting it lightly. So let's just hope that it goes through the proper channels, that they're transparent, and that they allow the proper people to come in and check them out and make sure that they're doing it right, and that they're not enriching anything that they shouldn't be. And hopefully we don't have any problems. And maybe the positive benefit, if we want to be optimistic about it, is that we make a bunch of money off of it, which is fine, I guess.
Well, these people who are on the advisory committee and the board of IP3 International are going to be the ones who make a lot of money out of it.
Right.
I mean, yeah, there's going to be people who are going to be Americans that would be working on those nuclear plants, but like besides that, how does it benefit anyone else in this country?
Yeah, I mean, the distribution of wealth wouldn't necessarily go around very wide.
the silver lining, I guess, would just be like more if you believe in nuclear energy, as you do and as I do as well. I mean, I'm a fan of nuclear energy for the future. Then it's a step in creating a world where we can use nuclear energy to power our economies, but.
That's right.
I mean, that's the only silver lining in it. But, I mean, for Saudi's case, it's more so just a way for them to – I mean, it's obviously any country would want to do it. Saudi, they use – in the Middle East, by far, they consume the most amount of fossil fuels
That's right.
In the greater Middle East. They want to be able to ship out more oil and just ship out more petroleum products and not have to use that to sustain their own population. The birth rate's high.
Yeah, they're following the 10 crack commandments. Don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, that's exact same reason why Iran wants nuclear power, is because they want to be able to ship out more oil, which makes perfect sense. But yeah, that's kind of like my take on it. I don't know if you have anything to add on it before we get on to kind of the crux or the meat and potatoes of today's show.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'll add on to that is just like I'm curious to watch this a little closer to see how this pans out, to see if there's going to be a fight in Congress about it, about whether or not we give them the tech at all. And then if we do, I'm curious to watch and see how much the Saudis cooperate with international protocol on this sensitive technology. So we'll be watching it. We'll be covering it. Whenever it comes up, we'll talk about it.
Spoiler alert, I'm just going to make a prediction. They're not going to cooperate or go through the proper channels whatsoever.
No, and there's probably going to be a big Congress fight about it too. So,
and it's going to be super, super secretive on the Saudi side, and it's just going to be a mess.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'll add one more thing. Saudi already kind of has access to nuclear energy through Pakistan because Saudi subsidized that program in Pakistan.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so it's not like they're not completely without access to nuclear power or nuclear technology. It's a matter of I actually really do think this is a matter of them trying to build plants and not build nuclear bombs to blow up Iran or something like that. But yeah, like as far as like the proper protocol, no, I don't think they're going to go through it. All right, so here is the interesting thing that appeared in the news, and we were actually going to talk about a different topic, but this was just so juicy that we had to bring it up. So some members of the Saudi hit team that killed Jamal Khashoggi received training in the U.S. According to the reporting of David Ignatius of the Washington Post, and I'll add that his interviews included dozens of U.S. and Saudi sources, and they all requested to remain anonymous. The operations training that the Saudi hit team received in the U.S. might have been conducted by Tier 1 Group, an Arkansas-based company. And the training was part of a wider intelligence and defense partnership between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia and was conducted under a State Department license. All right, we've talked about Jamal Khashoggi a lot, right?
Yes, we have.
Oof. And what I found really interesting, and no, I'm not surprised. I don't think this is juicy as in like this is surprising news that this Saudi hit squad was trained in the United States, because that happens all the time. We cooperate with with Saudi Arabian intelligence all the time in training their training their police,
their troops and shit.
Their troops. Yeah. Mohammed bin Nayef, the former crown prince, the king of counterterrorism in Saudi Arabia. I mean, he was trained by the FBI. He was trained by Scotland Yard. So a lot of this happens. We train. I mean, this has been going on for many, many years. Let's just be completely honest. We've been training Saudi Arabians in the art of war since we started training the Mujahideen with them. So this is something that's been going along. There's many, 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 many cases that you can call out of us cooperating and training Saudi Arabian intelligence and stuff.
That's right.
But what I found,
and it makes total sense too that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it makes total sense that we're training up our allies. Like we've got this thing that we can share, right? We're pretty good at war, right? And obviously we want our allies to be just as well equipped and just as good in the field as us, because we have interests there, right? So if we go into a firefight with some of our allies, we want to make sure that they're on the same par, or at least close to where we're at. So like it's not necessarily nefarious that we're training foreign nationals in our arts of war. What is kind of interesting is the aftermath of that, and I'll let you get back into it. Sorry for cutting you off.
Oh no, it's it's not nefarious in nature to train an ally, but it's nefarious in nature when your ally is Saudi Arabia. Then it's nefarious in nature, just because you're training an ally that's not very good.
Right. To their defense, though, they haven't yet admitted that the people that were actually on the hit squad were trained by this group. They're being a little quiet about it, but then again, they were also quiet about the whole Khashoggi thing for a minute too, until they got caught. So.
Well, what I find interesting about this is that it opens up the conversation for where these guys are being trained, and I'm going to share my computer screen because I'm very interested in this tier 1 group.
Yeah.
That, let's share the screen. Where the fuck is the share button? Here we go. So this is tier 1 group. Training you for tomorrow's threats. Get our capabilities brief. Let's go down. T1G is dedicated to providing the highest level of training across the operational spectrum. We combine the synergy of real-world experience, institutional knowledge, and purpose-built facilities to exceed the demands of our clients. T1G continuously anticipates the next evolution of conflict and adapts our core competencies to meet this ever-changing operational landscape. This website is so badass.
I want to hear the famous movie announcer guy say it in that voice. Training for tomorrow's benefits. Everything about this page is just
badass.
It screams toxic masculinity.
Oh man, but it's don't scare away our audience, guys.
If you're listening, I didn't mean you.
Don't scare away our audience with that libtard language. All right. The T1G difference: 100% readiness and less with measurable cost savings. T1G is uniquely qualified to assist and support Tier 1 and Tier 2 SOP-specific requirements, as well as conventional special purpose forces, law enforcement, and OGAs. I don't know. I can go on reading this website, but I just think it's so, I just love the color scheme.
Yeah.
And just from everything, from the badass videos in the background, this website is just fucking killer. And for those of you who are listening, we're actually video casting this as well, and we have it up. It's just fucking cool as shit. I'll just say that.
But if you want
Danny,
some,
talk because
some
there's
background,
a fucking
I hear you. If you want to check it out yourself and you're only on the podcast right now, just go to t1g.com. It's literally that short, and just scroll around a little bit. It's interesting. And if you have the time, take a look at their promo video because it's absolutely epic. I think I'm kind of getting sold on it. I'd love to go there for a weekend and do a little bit of training. How about you, Henry?
I would love it. I would fucking... All right, let's go to their YouTube channel.
All right.
Tier 1 group.
Can we talk about what they used to be called for a second?
Oh, yeah.
Before they became Tier 1 group, as if this wasn't...
I think they were called Aggressive Training Group.
Aggressive... Hold on. T1G.
Look it up. Let me get the exact words.
Yeah. T1G. Okay, so Tier 1 group, formerly known as Aggressive Training Solutions. Located in Crawfordsville, Arkansas. Founded by retired Marine Steve Reichert. So yeah, Aggressive Training Solutions. This is awesome.
This is so funny. All right, just look at the background of this. Look at the channel art for this YouTube channel. There's
haha, I got you, terrorist.
I got you. So there's a guy dressed up in a terrorist uniform. So he's just all geared out in Islamic attire.
And he's got his AK-47, his Kalashnikov.
With this Kalashnikov, with a headdress, sunglasses, and it's a firefight. They're about to engage in a firefight, and some I guess some.
What's up with that dude in the background? Yeah, like what is he doing?
He's like carrying flour. I don't know. He's like carrying groceries or something. I don't know what he's doing.
That's crazy.
I don't think he's supposed to be there.
No,
or maybe he's a
he's
coach.
probably very shocked.
He walked into the shot, but it's a firefight, and like this doesn't even look like this looks like a stage.
Yeah, it looks like a set. Yeah,
it looks like a set. It doesn't look. It looks like the most Middle Eastern. It looks like a.
It looks like a map on like the first Call of Duty. Like Modern Warfare. Like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1. Like one of the maps on there.
But dude,
this is what this looks like.
Do Arab cities look like this that much? Like, most of them are urban, right? Like,
I have no idea.
This looks like it's straight out of Baghdad from the 12th century.
This looks like it could be on Tatooine, like in Star Wars.
Dude, that's what exactly. I wouldn't be surprised if they filmed the same set there. But yeah, it looks like Tatooine of Star Wars.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to their promo video.
All right, I don't know if we can get the audio coming through on this, but it's very aggressive.
Oh my god! We'll overlay
metal
it
basically
for the podcast, so everyone can hear what we're listening to. And for people who are listening to the podcast on iTunes, when we play this, just close your eyes and imagine what you're thinking. Like, what do you think's going on?
Like aggressive metal music. Well, it's actually not that heavy, but it's like your stereotypical nu metal sound. A bunch of people jumping out of helicopters. There's a Humvee jumping over the hill. Doors exploding, and they're doing the breaches. Oh, and the Crown Vics. Holy shit. How many Crown Vics are we going to see? They're just rolling around in these Crown Victorias doing like barrel rolls and shit like that, like pit maneuvers.
Dude, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
This is fucking awesome.
I want to go. It looks like fun.
Oh my god.
Little bomb robot.
Dude, this promo video is giving me it wants me to ditch all my lame non-interventionist crap. Like, this is how cool this video is. It's such a sick video. Like, it
feels so like Team America World Police. Like, it's like, oh,
America.
Fuck yeah. This is awesome. Yeah, I would love to spend a weekend doing this shit. Like, what do I got to do to sign up? Like, how much does this shit cost? Can I join?
It is unbelievable. It looks super cool. I'll leave it at that. But I guess the point is, it's really interesting. And let me just fucking don't see my notes. I don't want you to know I have a script. Fuck. Stop sharing. Am I not sharing anymore?
No, you're not.
All right. My social security number was right there. Jesus Christ. Oh, shit. All right. Well, I just find it super interesting that I guess this is what is used to train the Saudi police and intelligence. And I guess I'm a little, I guess I'm just, I need to throw my ignorance out there on this. I never looked into one of these like security groups. Apparently, though, they didn't do a good enough job because they did not train that Saudi hit squad properly and getting away with what they did.
No.
You want to know the truth about, like, here's what I think would happen with Khashoggi. So Khashoggi, I don't think they were trying to kill him at the consulate in Turkey. What I think happened is that they were trying to abduct him and bring him back to Saudi Arabia so they could interrogate him over a longer period of time. I think that was botched. I think they killed him by accident. Mm-hmm. And you can even, the evidence is that they bagged him. They put a bag on his head, and the last words that were recorded is that I can't breathe or I'm suffocating. I'm paraphrasing it, but
So do you think he died?
And he said he had asthma. So apparently, I think they killed him by bagging him up due to his respiratory problems, his health issues. And when they killed him, they were like, it was like
panicked.
Yeah, they panicked. It was like a Pulp Fiction. I just shot Marvin in the face type kind of situation. Like,
yeah.
I think they accidentally killed him, and I don't know if they panicked. They were just like, "Fuck, we got to get rid of the body now," and that's why he's dead. Maybe if they didn't botch that, they would get him back. They would have got him back to Saudi Arabia. But you have to ask the question: what do you think they would have done to him once they got him back to Saudi Arabia?
Exactly. He would have been as good as dead if they were to successfully abduct him and bring him to Saudi Arabia.
Well, what I think could have happened is that they could have put him under some type of house arrest or some type of prison sentence, or put him in a hotel and just over many.
You're gonna put him up in the Ritz-Carlton with the rest of those guys that they did.
They could have done something. They could have done that. They could have put him up in the Ritz-Carlton. But I think most likely, because of his deep ties with the CIA, because of his deep ties with Al Qaeda, some of his deep
and frankly his deep ties with the United States. Like he was he's obviously not a citizen, but he was a permanent resident here, and he has United States citizen children. Do you think like they would just sit around and be like, yeah, cool, you can abduct my dad and hold him hostage in your country against his will? Like, that'll fly over just fine. No, absolutely not.
Not just that, but he had deep ties to the CIA. He was a Washington Post journalist,
right?
The CIA newspaper. You know what I mean? Like the most Washington establishment publication in the world is the Washington Post. Living in Virginia, like, dude, of course, he had deep ties with the CIA, deep ties with Al Qaeda. He was a journalist that covered Bin Laden. His uncle was one of the biggest arms dealers in Saudi Arabia. He had a very, very close relationship he was the advisor for Prince Turkmen. He wasn't just some dissident journalist. He wasn't like, I hate the fact that the story gets spinned is that he was just some type of voice for reason in progress, and he was a critic of Mohammed bin Salman,
which he was. In the end, he was.
Which he was a critic, but he was a critic of MBS because of how he went about taking power. He wasn't necessarily a critic on like the structure of Saudi Arabia, like the political system, the monarch, like the overall monarchy of Saudi Arabia. He was a Saudi nationalist, and he was also very hawkish in Iran. Like, he represented a lot of the policies that Saudi Arabia would like. So he wasn't just some dissident journalist who was like the lone wolf type of guy who was going out and trying to expose Saudi Arabia as some terrible, horrible place. I mean, that information is already pretty much out there. But it had more, like, the way this went down, the way that he was kidnapped, the way that he was abducted, and, it speaks to something a lot deeper. So you have to ask the question, what do you think that is? Like, do you think it's because he knew something? Do you think he was just a CIA spook, a double agent? Like, I don't know. I don't fucking know what he was. You can only. I don't think we'll ever know. Really, yeah. You can only really speculate, really, by looking at.
We won't know until HBO makes a movie out of it.
Yeah, but if HBO makes a movie out of it, it's not going to be right.
Well, are any of those movies right?
That's a great transition.
Yeah, it is. Because I just recently watched a good HBO movie.
That's a great transition for our next topic. We're going to be talking about Swedish-made penis enlargers. No, we're going to be talking about... so I watched a movie the other day called The Pentagon Wars. And I guess this segues into kind of like the military-industrial complex type thing that... So I watched a movie called The Pentagon Wars, and it was about the Bradley fighting vehicle.
That's
right. Basically, it was about kind of reformers in the Pentagon who were speaking up against the Bradley fighter vehicle that wasn't combat ready when they were trying to manufacture it, and it was just a whole big thing, and all these generals were adding ridiculous modifications to it, and the whole thing ended up being a disaster. And it's kind of similar to the F-35 project right now, where the F-35 can do a million different things, but
that's right.
It's harshly criticized, mainly because of its cost and some of its on-field
among
experience.
Many other things. Yeah,
among many, its cost and and many other things, such as it falling out of the sky.
It wasn't meant to be in the sky in the first place. So.
It wasn't meant to be in the sky. It was meant to be 20 feet up in the sky, just as a cool hovering craft. But I don't know. Can you further summarize the movie, Danny?
Yeah. So the big plot is the development of the Bradley AFV, or armored fighting vehicle, and it's set in the late 80s, around the time that they were running some final tests to see if it was combat ready to go on out and onto the field. So awesome and funny movie, by the way. I literally just finished the last bit of it about like an hour or two ago.
It's hilarious, by the way. It's terrific.
Yeah, Kelsey Grammer's in it. He does a really good job. The guy who plays Colonel Burton is what's this guy's name? Let me look it up. Carrie Hughes or some shit like that.
The mom's boyfriend in Liar Liar, who's not Jim Carrey.
Yeah, that guy. Also did a really stand-up job. I thought it was dope. It was funny and it was poignant, and it honestly reminded me of our talk about the F-35, and some of the trouble that it's getting itself into in its development, procurement, and ultimate sale. But this obviously got me super excited about doing another military tech show. We haven't done one in a little while. So I think we're just going to want to talk a little bit about the Bradley fighting vehicle and make some fun comparisons and contrasts to the movie itself.
So I don't know if can you go on to, you're much better at this. So like, what is an AFV? Like what purpose does it serve?
Yep. So it's an armored fighting vehicle, which is a super vague term. And I would forgive you if you took a look at a picture of one of these vehicles, and I'm sure you're going to pop one up in the video right here, Henry. If you looked at this thing and you're just like, oh, that's a tank, I would totally forgive you for thinking it was. It's not, but it totally looks like one. So its main function, or at least the function that it was initially intended for, is a troop carrier, right? They say in the movie it's like a taxi cab for soldiers, right? It's just like this big vehicle on tracks similar to a tank that originally intended they wanted to ferry like 11, 12 soldiers in addition to a small crew across the battlefield to get them where they need to go relatively safely, but definitely very quickly. Like that's the intended result. Now the F in the armored fighting vehicle portion of it means that it is outfitted with some armaments, some weapons to be able to defend itself. Right? It's not just a sitting duck. It's not an Uber for the armed forces. Like, it does have a gun on it. And I think was funny about the movie that I loved was when they pointed out how it transitioned from just literally a troop carrier with a modest gun on top to protect itself to this ridiculously badass looking thing that we have now. So initially it was just like a big, van with on treads with like a 50 cal on top, and now it straight up looks like a tank. And that's what an armored fighting vehicle is.
But like, what were the issues with? Can you outline the issues with building the Bradley? Like, what exactly happened? Like, where did all that shit? Like, where did things go wrong?
Yeah. So I mean, there was a number of things that went wrong, and I think I kind of started pointing out the biggest reason that it went wrong was because its initial purpose was to carry troops quickly and effectively across the battlefield, and then it morphed into this catch-all vehicle that we have today. So maybe before I jump into that, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about it itself, some of the history of it. This way I can give a little bit of context to like where it is today. So the thing was built by BAE Systems, or BAE Systems. It was named after General Omar Bradley, who was an officer, a high-ranking officer during World War II. And started the development in like the 60s. It began into production in the 80s. We have currently built like 7,000 of them, just under 7,000 of them. They cost about $3 million a pop, which is, go figure, more than what was estimated. And initially it was, like I said, set up to carry 3 crew. So it would be a gunner, a commander, and a driver, right? Plus 11 or 12 guys in the back, troops. And what it is now, there are 2 variants. There's the M2 variant. The M2 is the fighter vehicle, right? And that one carries 6 to 7 troops, fully armed to the teeth. And the other variant is the M3 cavalry, and that one carries just the original 3 crew, plus 2 more soldiers, plus a fuck ton of armor. So to bring back a point that I was making earlier, a big problem with the development of this was that it was initially intended just to carry troops, but a bunch of army guys, joint bigwigs, got together and they were like, yeah, that's cool. Wouldn't it be also cool if it had a really big gun on top? Because like you're not going to kill anybody with that little pea shooter on top. And then they stick a giant turret on it, right? 25 millimeter cannon that fires 200 rounds per minute, right? And then, okay, well that brings up a big problem. If there's a giant ass cannon on it, then if your enemy sees it on the field, they're going to prioritize that. They're going to think that's a threat. We need to take that down. All right, well, that sucks. Let's think about the armor then, right? It needs to be much more heavily armored, because if it's going to take a round from a tank or a rocket-propelled grenade or some shit like that, it needs to be able to defend itself. But oh wait, the initial intended use of this thing was to move quickly. If you slap on a bunch of armor, it's just going to slow the vehicle down. And then they were like, all right, well, that's a good point. So fuck it. Let's just instead of being, like they say in the movie, instead of being reactive and just put a bunch of armor on it, let's be proactive and stick literally a anti-tank tow missile on it. Let's put a tow missile on it. And then they were like, all right, cool. And we also want this thing because we need a scout. We need a scout vehicle. And this Bradley vehicle's already been appropriated. So we also want this to be a scout vehicle. But then they're like, oh shit. This can't be a sneaky stealth scout vehicle if it stands over 10 feet tall with a giant-ass gun and an anti-tank missile launcher. Like, what the fuck? So, basically, they just kept tacking on all of these extra features that they wanted this vehicle to be and to do. And ultimately, what they came up with was a vehicle that was prone to a lot of issues. And I'll talk more about some of those issues, but I want to get some of your initial reactions on, like, why this thing was such a problem to develop.
It was just a symptom of the military-industrial complex, just trying to make it as expensive as possible, trying to add all these stupid modifications to it to make it do everything when it can't do one thing good. Like,
right.
That's my criticism of the F-35. Like,
yeah,
they try to make it do a million different things, and it can't do one thing really good yet. And, I mean, who knows what the future is of the F-35 if they make the improvements, but it's still going to cost trillions of dollars. It's going to cost it has cost $1 trillion. The program's it's estimated over $1 trillion right now?
That's right.
It's over $1 trillion right now. It's $1 trillion fucking dollars for a plane.
It's the most expensive military thing. Yeah, most expensive military thing on the planet in the history of forever.
Like, think about that. Like, we have other fucking jets.
That's right.
We
Good
have
ones.
F-22.
Good ones too.
We have awesome jets like the F-22. Like, we have all this awesome military technology. And it just seems like these projects, they're built not in the mind for the safety of American soldiers or whatever, just any soldier on the ground. They're built
or in the air, for that matter.
Yeah, they're built for profits, and they're just built for they're trying to make the most expensive military equipment rather than the best military equipment. And that's why you see Russia building things like the S-400, which is for all intents and purposes, it's better than.
It's the best thing in its category.
It's the best thing in its category. It's better than THAAD. It's better than fucking the Iron Dome. It's better. It's and they don't have the capital. Like, Russia doesn't have the capital to invest these billions of dollars into this military equipment. So they have to be resourceful, and they have to make the best equipment, and they have to use their head and think about battlefield circumstances. That's right. Also, their fucking Sukhoi. Like, you can talk to their Sukhoi as well. Like, their Sukhoi awesome, would fucking if an F-35 pilot got into a dogfight with a Sukhoi, that pilot would be fucking dead.
Right. But I guess the point of the vehicle of the F-35 is not to dogfight. And this kind of highlights a little bit of the problems of the Bradley, right? So with the F-35, a bunch of Joint Chiefs of Staff got together and they were like, hey, we all need a new next generation airplane, but we want it to do like a million fucking things. But we want one airplane so that it could be economical. And the fucking Marines are like, yeah, well, I want a jump jet, which is like a Harrier where it's like stationary prone and it just like takes off like a fucking it's miraculous. It's crazy. But the Navy's like, no, I want one with wings that collapse so we can, put it on an aircraft carrier. And the Army's like, well, I want this other one that can drop ordnance on a bunch of targets. So it's a bunch of competing demands. And what, like, the idea behind the F-35 and to my point, the Bradley armored fighting vehicle, the point behind him is pretty awesome. But what ends up happening is you get a bunch of competing priorities, right? Everybody wants something out of it, whether that's a functionality, a capability, or in many cases in the military-industrial complex, whether it's just frankly to make a fuck ton of money, right? And when you get all those competing priorities in place, what you end up getting out of it is things like the F-35, right? But it wasn't intended, I think, originally to be a dogfighter. That's the F-22. That's the king of our skies at this point. But we wanted a multi-role vehicle that can do everything in the sky, right? That's like saying, the new Russian tanks, the Tu-45s, I think they are, or 47s. You wouldn't pit a Tu-47 against a Bradley armored fighting vehicle. That's like a mismatch. The tank would absolutely blast the shit out of this fighting vehicle. But you might pit an Abrams tank against a M1 Abrams, the American-built tank, against the Tu-47. That's a good fight. That's a fair comparison, right? Unfortunately, just like the F-35, the Bradley is supposed to be a support vehicle, right? It's supposed to move troops and keep pace with tanks, and it's supposed to keep people relatively safe, and it's supposed to defend itself, and it's supposed to do so in a way that's economic. But obviously it didn't work out that way. It took like 14 years to build. It took like 17 years to build, and like $14 billion, and they already cost like $3 million and change each. It's crazy. That's not to say I don't like the vehicle, and just like the F-35, there are things about the F-35 that I really liked, and I pointed them out in great detail in our episode about it. But this armored fighting vehicle is dope. I mean, it's as crazy as it is, and for as many faults as it has, it's pretty cool. I mean, 25 millimeter cannon on top definitely laid down a lot of rounds. If you're just trying to move your troops into an area and make a lot of suppressive fire, this thing is going to light up the place. It's also got a 7.62 machine gun for like close combat fire with like just infantry, so like you can protect yourself against guys with like RPGs and shit. It's got this like electric turret drive that was built by GE that keeps the main gun stable even if you're like on bumpy roads and shit. So it's like, think about like a gimbal for like a drone or like another type of camera. It keeps it like buttery smooth, real easy, so it could shoot while it's driving. And the thing rides at like 40 miles an hour, which is fast for a vehicle this heavy and this big. And like the long range anti-tank missile, like this tow missile that's sitting on top, like nothing before this, no vehicle before this, unless it was specifically an anti-tank vehicle, had anti-tank missiles attached to them. That's pretty fucking badass, So is it a very good troop carrier? Probably not, because it doesn't carry enough troops. Is it a really good scout vehicle? Probably not, because the thing is massive, right? Is it a good tank? No, because it's not a tank, even though it's borderline one. But it does a bunch of random shit, and it sits in kind of this operational use case that's kind of all of them. You know, a jack of all trades, if you will.
How often do we use the Bradley right now?
All the fucking time. Like, all the time. We've been deploying these things pretty heavily into every single war since like the 80s. So I think the first time we used it was during Desert Storm. Let me just double check on that. I had this in my notes somewhere, but I've forgotten. Okay, so we started in the Gulf War, and we lost a couple of them, most of them to friendly fire, believe it or not. And then we also used them heavily in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. But then we started switching to the more mobile MRAPs, and that's just like another armored fighting vehicle. We've lost a ton of them, but they definitely served a huge purpose in pretty much every war that we've been in since the late 80s.
So another thing that I want to add to just kind of like the symptoms of the MIC in creating this expensive all-purpose equipment is that what it does, how it seduces congressmen and political and politicians, because these projects, they also create a lot of jobs.
They do, yeah.
So
thousands of them.
If you look at Bernie Sanders, and now Bernie Sanders,
we got to create lots of jobs across the country.
Bernie Sanders he endorsed the F-35 project, and basically he said, listen, hey, that F-35 is going to be built somewhere. It might as well be built in Vermont.
That's right.
Vermont,
as did 47 other senators. So, you know, like with the F-35, as I pointed out in our last one, they spread out the production of the F-35 across 47 states and 9 international countries. So they engineer this thing not to fail. They make it so that, you know, if you're a senator, you don't want to be the dick that says, "Yeah, I don't need another 1,000 jobs in my state. I'm cool with that. No, I don't want this. I don't want this plane." And in the movie, the Pentagon Wars, about the Bradley production, the one general, the main Kelsey Grammer's character. You remember this guy's name? I forget already.
I don't.
General Partridge. Right, so General Partridge is like, all right, well, cool. Well, get me, you know, Senator What's His Face, and you know, just to shut him up, we'll build the you know, the damn tires there, you know, and this is what the military-industrial complex does, right? This is like Pentagon 101. If you're building something, if you're appropriating billions of dollars towards something, you better spread out your production as far and wide as you can, because that will guarantee that nobody's going to say no to it. And when there's problems and you need more money, or if frankly you're just trying to make more money and you want to manufacture a problem, it's relatively easy to do so because it's not politically expedient to turn down jobs, to turn down economic profit.
Yeah, it really puts politicians in a really tough position because they can never say no, because it means losing a part of their voting base at the end of the day. Because if you say no to jobs and your political opponent says, yeah, I supported that project, will be able to say, I will be able to bring these jobs into this state, then you're in a conundrum right there. So it's just kind of like one of the very negative things of how the MIC operates and how it seduces politicians into funding things that may not be in the interest of, you know, our soldiers or the American people.
That's right. You know, it's a damn shame too, because what gets lost on it is, you know, the intended purpose, right? So, and this is big in the movie in the Pentagon Wars, and it's definitely true for our F-35 project right now, is that these weapons, these vehicles, these things that we're creating are intended to give our troops the edge, you know, the operational edge in a combat situation, you know. And when we start getting wrapped up in competing priorities of, you know, departments of defense or competing priorities in the military-industrial complex, like private companies that want to profit off of this, or in political, issues, we lose sight of the really important point, and that's, you know, the troops on the ground or in the air or at sea, you know, the people that these weapons and these vehicles, these tools are intended for. And so with the Bradley fighting vehicle, there was a lot of big glaring issues about it that the Army and the folks that were developing this were actively trying to suppress, just so that we can turn a profit on it, just so we can start building it, just so that they can get their promotions, as they say in the movie. A couple of them were, for example, we talked about you stick a big turret on top of a vehicle, and then it becomes a target, right? The enemy is going to think, hey, this is dangerous, we need to take it out. So there's the armor problem. So rather than putting really heavy steel armor on it, which would slow down the vehicle and basically make it not effective as a troop carrying device, they just left it to the aluminum. And what's fucked up about aluminum is that when it burns, it lets off toxic fumes. So let's say you're riding around in this vehicle and it's lined with aluminum, and it gets hit by an incendiary device, a grenade, a RPG, or some other device, and it burns the aluminum. Well, honestly, that's going to even if you don't die in the blast, which is probably pretty likely because aluminum's not very strong in terms of like penetration strength. If you're still alive in the vehicle, all of that fume from the burning aluminum is going to kill you, or it's severely going to injure you, basically render you operationally incapable. And that portion of it was something that they actively tried to suppress, and by they I mean the folks that were developing this weapon, by basically trying to conduct live fire tests that weren't really live fire tests. So they would, instead of having a full tank of gas, they would have like just enough gas to drive the vehicle onto the field to blow it up, or they would replace the gas with water, right? Which water, go figure, isn't flammable, right? So the thing won't burst. Or if they wanted to see if the live ammunition that was inside of the vehicle would like combust and burn and explode if they got hit, they would replace the bullets for the machine gun and take out the gunpowder in the bullets and replace it with sand instead, which is again not combustible. And so they were basically rigging the tests so that the test would look like, hey, this is great, this is nothing blew up, move on to the next one. And General Partridge, at least in his depiction in the movie, I'm not certain how much different this was in his testimony, his actual testimony to Congress, but like was very adamant about the fact that they did that on purpose because they couldn't buy, there wasn't an unlimited supply of them. So, but again, it loses sight of the people that would have been inside of them. Now, had folks like Colonel, what the fuck is this guy's name? Why do I keep forgetting these people's names? Colonel Burton, had it not been for folks like that raised these issues and really pressed the matter, it's very possible that we could have sent a bunch of death traps onto the field of combat with live human beings inside of them, and it would have been really fucking bad. But as a result of the work that folks like Colonel Burton did, adjustments and upgrades were made to the vehicles such that they were largely addressed. But I think that's super important. We got to remember that with all these devices and things that we make, we have to keep in mind that people are going to use them, and we don't want to lose more troops because we just want to make a buck.
Yeah, and that ties into what we began this podcast on about trying to push through the Saudi nuclear deal just because certain people on the board wanted to make a buck without having Saudi go through the proper protocol.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Just follow
it's
the
all
dollars.
To screw you and make a buck.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about the Bradley Martin? Or do you have anything else to say?
Honestly, I think it's pretty cool. I would love to ride around in one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. The F-35 is pretty fucking dope too. But it's and when you just think about everything that dope, like all the neat things with the helmet and being able to see from the back, like you can see behind you, right, from side to side.
See through the vehicle. You can see through the airplane. You
can control drones through the F-35, like all the computing power stuff that the F-35 has. The fact that it's amphibious, like amphibious. Can you speak to it a little bit? I know this is off topic, but F-35 is amphibious to some regard, right? Meaning that it can hover. It can hover over.
So that's you're mixing up some words. So amphibious would be like, the Bradley vehicle is potentially amphibious in the sense that it might be able to submerge itself into water. Amphibious means it can do land and water. You can't put an F-35 in the water. That's not possible.
Yeah, I meant that, but I meant it's like to some degree it's used by.
It's used by like Marines. So I think you might be referring to the jump jet in it, like the Harrier engine.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, whereby it could literally be on the ground, and hopefully we can put a video of like a demonstration of this. This shit looks like magic. It's it's got like this internal engine that like points downwards and basically causes enough thrust where it could just literally take off from just a standing position straight up like an elevator and then take off that way. And that's really, really cool. But we have jets that do that. The Harrier is one of them. But with the F-35, we have 3 variants of the F-35, and I forget exactly which one it is. I think it's a B for the Marines, the ones that use that. Basically, we wanted one plane that does everything, and we got 3 planes that does kind of everything. It's kind of a quagmire, a little bit.
Well, I agree. When you try to make one thing do everything, it doesn't do any of those things good. Mm-hmm. That's just my interpretation of the Bradley. Like putting a gun on top of a troop carrier defeats the whole purpose of making a troop carrier if the gun is fucking huge and makes it a target.
Right.
Like right. It's impossible to do that. If you're gonna put a big fucking gun on a troop carrier, then you might as well make it a fucking tank.
Well, but then you can't carry troops in a tank. You know what I mean? It defeats the purpose. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Everyone should just start using Toyota trucks.
Tacomas.
Tacomas. That's the best way. That's the best form of warfare. Just putting a gun on a Toyota.
Right. They're cheap for sure. Probably get good gas mileage too.
What's the Blue Book value of a Tacoma?
I don't know. It depends on what year and like how many miles it's got on it, but. No more than
20,000. A new Tacoma was probably like 25 G's.
Yeah, base model probably $25,000.
Yeah, between 20 to 30 G's.
Fully loaded, if you want the Bluetooth, stereo on it, then it's probably looking at about $30,000. Yeah,
fully loaded. Compared to
with the 20-inch rims,
compared to a Bradley, which is what, like $16 million a unit or something like that.
$3 million, but
$3 million.
You gotta remember that it also costs like $14 billion to develop it. So
yeah, how much do you think it cost Toyota to develop the Tacoma?
I don't know, probably like $100 million, but it's all relative because they're selling millions of these trucks. So
I know. But at the same time, like the Toyota truck does so much in the battlefield. It does so much in terms of desert warfare.
It does. But we don't use them for those purposes. But the other side certainly does. We've got our own trucks. All right. You ever seen a Humvee before?
It's really fascinating how Toyota trucks were used as Humvees, basically, for 30 years in the Middle East in desert warfare.
Yeah, I mean...
But that's for another episode.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't want to dive too deep into that can of worms right now.
Nope.
All right. We're on for an hour right now. Any closing words?
Yeah, just pay attention to where money goes and like why and how it's being spent. Whether that's, in the government, in the military-industrial complex, or frankly, in your own home. Where the money gets spent tells you a lot about what the motivations are, and I think that's kind of the overarching theme of today's episode.
TG1 promo video.
Cue it right now.
Cue it.